Minnesota came into the Frost Center, and guess what? Stole game one. What went wrong for your San Antonio Spurs? Welcome back to another episode of Spurs In Focus right here on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. You also got Pocket Cast, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube Music, obviously YouTube itself. Pick a platform. We are there. Substack, Spurs In Focus Substack, completely free. Go there right now. Subscribe, become part of the crew. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, longtime Spurs writer in San Antonio. What are we talking about today? Yeah, looking back at the loss. Yeah, Spurs dropped game one of the West Semis to Minnesota, losing home court advantage. And it was not a pretty effort, at least on one side of the court. We're going to be talking about what went wrong, our takeaways, who was, if you can, some players of the night. Could be good, could be bad. Standout stats, again, could be good, could be bad. But more importantly, what was the turning point? Because the Spurs were seemingly in it and, punching back with Minnesota, but something went wrong. We're going to talk about that and more. Let's go and bring in our guest, Mr. Rudy Campos of the Sports Answer, who nonchalantly kind of saw this coming. Rudy, welcome back to Spurs In Focus. Follow him on X at the Sports Answer. Rudy, no more home court advantage because Minnesota stole it.
Yeah, I mean, I originally picked the Spurs in 6, so obviously the Timberwolves got to get at least 2 wins in there, but no more home court advantage just for now. I mean, they could go to Minnesota, they could steal a game there, grab home court advantage there, but a lot of the stuff that we talked about in the last Spurs in Focus were kind of our concerns, and those concerns became a reality. So, yeah, I mean, not that we called, we both said they were going to win game one, but it's if they would win game one if certain things didn't happen, and those things ended up happening.
Yeah, before we get into our takeaways, just some general observations here. One thing that I observed, and guess what? You can hear this a lot on this episode, offense, but offensively, your 2 stars were practically a no-show.
Yeah.
Would you be surprised, everybody, if I told you that Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox combined for 22 points on the night? 11 for Wemby, 10 for Fox. That cannot cut it at all. At all. Minnesota's top dogs, from Anthony Edwards, who came off the bench, coming back from injury, double figures. Julius Randle, double figures. The list goes on and on. Those players stepped up. But the 2 main guns for the Spurs, Victor and De'Aaron, did not offensively. 22 points combined, Rudy. I am a bit shocked at that number. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Julius Randle had 21 by himself, so that should already tell you there. I mean, it was a very bad night for De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. Now, Victor had a triple-double, but, take away from the scoring part, you got to get more scoring out of Victor. And this goes credit to Rudy Gobert. I mean, one guy that we mentioned in Spurs In Focus, how, Gobert was going to make it tough for him. But not only that, Jaden McDaniels is guarding Victor Wembanyama too. So, if you remember, Victor has a lot of problems with players that are a lot shorter than him, a la Draymond Green. And Jaden McDaniels is another guy who's a very tough defender. So they were able to keep Victor. They made it very tough for him tonight. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he only went to the free throw line one time tonight.
Yeah.
So is it an anomaly game? Is it a game where it's just kind of one of those games? I would say so. I mean, do you dare say it was a big in the, like, a big moment type of game where the pressure was a little too much, or maybe they weren't ready for it? I don't know. But yeah, 21 points is what they had combined. 11 for Victor and 10 for Fox. That's not going to get it done, especially in the Western Conference Semifinals.
Yeah. 21 points combined. Not good. Again, before we get into my key takeaways from the game, another thing that I observed too, and it's something that I'm a little surprised by, because everybody saw this coming, even the Spurs. And if you watch Minnesota's first round series versus Denver, what does Minnesota do? They play physical.
Yeah.
The physicality got to the Spurs, from Victor to Mitch to Julian Champagny post game, all said Minnesota plays physical. I was a little surprised that threw their game off. And throughout the game, especially in the second half, you saw it get to the Spurs. You got a frustration of foul. De'Aaron Fox just trying to fight through a pick, got frustrated, wrapped up Rudy Gobert and tried to throw him on the court. You saw, just bully ball. You saw Julius Randle just plowing in the paint, scoring over Keldon. Same thing for Ant Edwards, just attacking, playing physical attack, offensive ball, scoring on Keldon to the point where Keldon got so frustrated he had to be separated by a ref because he was charging at Ant Edwards. Obviously, Ant's going to talk some smack, rightfully so. He earned it. It got to their head. The physicality got to this Spurs team. I'm a bit surprised they weren't ready for that. Do you chalk that up simply because they had some time off? Yeah, they didn't play a real physical Portland team, but my goodness, you got to be ready for that. That's what Minnesota does. They play physical style of ball. Rudy.
Yeah, they are a very physical team. I mean, maybe we could say it was because the Spurs had a significant amount of rest. They came out a little bit rusty, but no, I mean, I'm not gonna give them that excuse right there. Minnesota just came in and they bullied, something that San Antonio does, especially at Oklahoma City. They bullied Oklahoma City throughout the season. Minnesota came in, they played bully ball. They were able to get into the Spurs' head. Right. They made it very, very physical. One thing I mentioned to you before we started was I was surprised that Luke Kornet only played 8 minutes this game. Mm-hmm. You would have thought he would have been out there with Randle and Gobert. You would have thought maybe Mitch would have gone with Luke Kornet and Victor Wembanyama to kind of give him, two very big guys that can play physical actually with Randle, especially with Randle. I mean, there was a point where Devin Vassell was trying to guard Julius Randle and it just wasn't working, man. I mean, Randle's a big body. So, yeah, they were not only physical on the defensive side, they were physical on the offensive side. They were able to get to their spots. They were able to make, they were commanding the ball and they were getting to their spots on the offensive side. Physicality is playoffs, man. This is playoff basketball. Mm-hmm. It's a jaw shot to the mouth of the San Antonio Spurs, and hopefully it's one that wakes them up.
Throughout the game, every time the Spurs had a lead on Minnesota, and they had several leads. It wasn't a big lead, 7, 8 points, 9 points, maybe.
Yeah.
I never felt that Minnesota was out of it. And I think the Spurs learned a valuable lesson that say what you will about Minnesota, maybe underachieving, but that's technically an experienced playoff basketball team that's gotten close to the NBA Finals, not once, but twice in a row to the Western Conference Finals. And I saw that experience show, especially in the fourth period. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So you look at that, the Spurs, they were victims of the physicality of Minnesota. Minnesota never really was down for the count, despite the many runs the Spurs went on the Timberwolves. Minnesota kept on fighting. Now, we're not going to rain on the Spurs parade, even though they lost 104-102 in game one. We'll get to some good things. There were some good things about this game. But let me start off with my key takeaways from this game. So I'll put them on screen here. There we go. Already touched on it. Minnesota physicality. It got to the Spurs. You could see it throughout the game. Bully ball plowing through there. Julius Randle wasn't even backing down from Wemby in the paint. I kept saying, is Julius Randle just not learn? Don't try to pump fake Wemby. But he just did not want to back down from that challenge. Even though we got blocked several times, you just saw the mentality there that they were not going to back down to the Spurs team. Something that I talked about heading into the postseason overall was 3-point shooting. Would the Spurs kind of being a middle of the road team during the regular season, but when it comes to shooting the three, be an issue? Well, it was an issue versus Minnesota. Look at it, just Victor Wembanyama for the game. He went 0 for 8 from the 3-point line. That is not good. Now, overall, just collectively, the Spurs shot 10 for 36, 27%, while the Minnesota Timberwolves were 39% shooting from the 3 line. So that little gap right there was enough to help Minnesota get the win. 3-point shooting was not falling. It just wasn't. That was part of why they lost too. They just couldn't knock down offensively some shots, and just offensively, just not just from the 3-point line, just offensively they stunk. And then Minnesota fourth period takeover. Oh my goodness. You saw that championship medal, or that, I should not say championship, playoff tested medal, I should say, from Minnesota spark up. big time. They outscored the Spurs in a close game, mind you. It was close throughout, 35-30 in the final frame. Now they shoot the ball better, 63% shooting. They were hot in the fourth period to the Spurs 46%. Again, Spurs shot better, just wasn't good enough. They go to the free throw line 8 times. The Spurs go 4 times. Here's the key, though. How about the 3-point shooting? So the Spurs in the third period go 3 for 8 from the 3 line, while the Minnesota Timberwolves are a perfect 4 for 4. 4 for 4. And you saw contributions from the 3 line from Mike Conley, from Ant Edwards. He shot a 3 over an outstretched Victor Wembanyama. Yeah, that happened. That actually happened and did the impossible. Just overall, you look at just points off turnovers. Minnesota 7 fouls, was about even. Second chance points, Spurs got the edge there. But the biggest lead in the fourth period for Minnesota was 9. They just pretty much steadied the ship, stayed close. They never broke. They bended, but they never broke the dam. And that was enough for them to get the win. I saw an interesting stat really throughout the broadcast, especially when we get to the fourth period, that Minnesota, their plus minus versus the Spurs in the fourth period is always a plus. Plus 17, plus 8, plus 11. Something about that fourth period versus the Spurs. They know how to turn it on. Rudy, is that just their playoff experience shining bright?
I mean, you got to remember the last 2 games they played, I believe in January and then in the end of the season, Minnesota owned the fourth quarter. They came back and beat the Spurs, I believe, by 1 in Minnesota in January. And then the end of the season, Anthony Edwards went crazy where they almost beat the Spurs again in the fourth period. So, yeah, Minnesota, what they tend to do is they tend to keep it close, whether they're down 6 or 7, 8 points or whatever. And then they turn it up a notch in the fourth quarter against the San Antonio Spurs. I think what it is too is maybe the Spurs get a little too relaxed, Jeff. I mean, in the fourth quarter, when we all know that the fourth quarter, especially in playoff time, it's a winning time. They just turn up a notch. I don't know if it's maybe a coaching adjustment or whatever is going on in the fourth. San Antonio's definitely got to fix it because right now they can win the first, second, and third quarter. And unless they're up by 18, 19 points, I wouldn't feel safe with any type of lead going into the fourth quarter. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they definitely own the Spurs in the fourth quarter.
They did. The Wolves went on a plus 12 run on San Antonio. It was 84-81 Spurs with a 3-point lead with about 8 minutes left in the fourth period. Minnesota goes on a 16-4 run, lasts about the 3:41 point of the final frame. In that run, Wolves go 7 for 10 from the field while the Spurs go 1 for 5. So again, offensive woes shined unbrightly, I should say, or dimmed on the Spurs in that fourth period. And just overall, offensively, they just was having a rough time throughout the game, but it really, really was being magnified in the fourth period. Rudy, what are your game takeaways?
Man, so my takeaways, you hit a lot of them right there about the physicality, the 3-point shooting. I'm not going to be negative on San Antonio. Okay. My biggest takeaway was overall, the Spurs, they won just about every category. I mean, if you go down the team statistics, they won every category with the exception of the final score. If you think about it, they shot better than Minnesota, or they shot about even with Minnesota, the field goal percentage. They made the same amount of threes as Minnesota made. They just shot at a worse percentage. They both made 10. They out-rebounded Minnesota. They led the lead teams in blocks. I mean, assists. They even led for 42% of the game compared to Minnesota's 35% of the game. So my takeaway is that it's just one of those games. And that's basically the only thing I'm going to say. You can point to, De'Aaron Fox having 6 turnovers or whatever he had tonight. You could point at the fact that Wemby just got to the line, one time. You could point at both De'Aaron and Wemby just didn't show up point-wise. So it could be just one of those games. But if I'm looking at the positive side, and me, I like to pick on the negatives, and I like to grab all these negative things about the team and talk about it. But tonight, if you look at it just on the paper, Jeff, they played a good game. They stuck with Minnesota up until the final score. I mean, Minnesota, and let's not even get into the fact that, they had a chance to win here. But my other takeaway was the coaching, the Spurs coaching staff. as good as they've been all year and as, solid as they've been all year, this is the one game where I think the moment was big for them. I think they probably, they probably left a lot on the table, out on the floor. Maybe they have some things where they maybe want to look at it and say, you know what, we should have done this different. We should have done this different. So this is a takeaway for me as the coaching staff. I think they're questioning a lot of maybe decisions that they made, and they're not going to go back and regret them. I mean, they made them. They may look at them again and say, maybe we'll do something different in game 2. And I fully expect them to come out and have a different game plan against Minnesota. But again, for me, it's all positive for San Antonio because they basically won or right there with Minnesota on every statistical category.
Would you call the timeout in that situation with the game on the line? You have some time on the game clock. Yeah. It's your ball, or do you run it out like Mitch did?
So numbers, statistics, I guess whatever they say, the game plan or whatever says you go and you don't stop. You try to catch Minnesota off guard. Hopefully you get a good shot. Now, let's not, lie. Julian Champagny got a good shot. He was pretty much wide open, just had to knock it down. But me personally, I would have called timeout. And the reason being is because you were down 6, you came back in a frenzy, you're panicking. I mean, the team panicked almost the entire fourth quarter. When they were able to get a couple of stops. They got a couple of baskets. Minnesota came back. It was kind of like they were panicking. At that point, I get it. Just go. But I look back at Pop. There's some instances. You look back at the other coaches, maybe a Phil Jackson, stuff like that. They would have probably called timeout in that situation. A, because you've got a young squad. B, this is a pressure point moment in the playoffs. This could be a turning point for them. C, yes, you're going to catch Minnesota off guard if you don't call timeout. But at least if you call timeout, you move the ball to half court, you can set up a play. And to be honest, Jeff, I would have rather done an inbounds play and had Wemby maybe take that shot or maybe get to the basket.
Right.
Because that's your main guy. That's the main guy right there. Lo and behold, I would say yes. Just call timeout. In that situation, yes. Regular season situation, let it play on. Do what you got to do. Yeah. But I would call timeout.
Spurs, Rudy's available for coaching advice if you want to hire him for game 2.
No.
Bad idea?
Very bad idea because, I probably every Spurs fan yelling at me right now listening to me because they were like, you don't call timeout. You don't normally call timeout, but in this case, you do. You have to.
After the game, Mitch Johnson did speak about Wemby and Fox's play, and he said even though the box score doesn't show anything great, that he was very pleased with their box scores. Obviously, he's going to say that. He's their coach. Yeah. I understand that. But he has no worries about them moving into game 2. Dylan Harper says the same thing. He has no worries about Wemby going into game 2. But before taking a quick little break here, your thoughts on Stephon Castle fouled out of the game. Minnesota was really, it felt like they were targeting him more so than they were Wemby. I think they felt comfortable with Gobert doing what he could do to stop him. But you saw Shannon attack Castle. You saw them getting really physical with Stephon Castle, and it got to him, and he fouled out. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so, I mean, again, one of the points that I made, for them winning game 1 was Stephon Castle had to stay out of foul trouble. He was averaging 5 fouls against Minnesota. But you brought it up too. He only averages like 8 points against them too, but he averages like 5 fouls against Minnesota. And it showed tonight, last night, he fouled out of the game. So they attacked him, and they know kind of what a lot of people, a lot of players and a lot of coaches know is that Stephon Castle is a very aggressive defender. I mean, extremely aggressive defender. And if you attack him, Stephon Castle, he is young. He's still learning. He's still growing into the game. So he's going to have moments where he tries to anticipate passes and he'll try to get into a cutting lane. He'll get a little bit too physical. He'll get a little bit too hyped up. And that's where they take advantage. Playoff basketball, I mean, you want to play physical, but you also want to be smart on fouls as well. would it have made a difference if he was there in the end? I mean, yeah, because think about it. You got Stephon. Say you call timeout and you advance the ball. Who's the one guy that can get to the basket other than De'Aaron Fox or maybe Dylan Harper? I think Stephon Castle of the three is probably the best player to get to the basket, can finish around the rim, draw contact. So he would have been perfect in that situation, but because he fouled out, he's not available. Fouling out, man, it's something that he's going to have to work on. Not be not aggressive, but just be more useful on your fouls. Pick better positions and points in the game. Because if I'm not mistaken, didn't he have like 3 fouls in the first half?
Yeah, he got a foul trouble quick.
Yeah. So I mean, you're probably the second best player on this team. You've got to be there at the end of the game, man. So no bad thing about Stephon. He's still young. He's still learning. A lot of these guys are still learning too. So no big thing, but he's got to control the fouls, especially against Minnesota.
Yeah. In that third period, he had 2 fouls already, so he picked them up quick.
Yeah.
And then in the fourth frame, that's where he fouled out. I think he had, and so pull up the numbers here. Yeah, he put up 2 more fouls in that fourth period. That's when it ultimately had him tossed out of the game. And yeah, you saw all those Minnesota guards, just anybody, just really going at him, frustrating him. Yeah. So, now the good news, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to put a wrap on our general thoughts, get into standout stats, standout player, and turning point of the game. I know Rudy has a big one back. How do I know? Because he texted me what the turning point of the game was. So all that coming up next right here on Spurs in Focus with Mr. Rudy Campos of The Sports Answer. He's on X at The Sports Answer. Follow me on X at Jeff G Spurs Zone.
I am the night. I am the darkness. I am Batman. And I subscribe to Spurs in Focus.
I mean, when Batman subscribes to Spurs in Focus, I think should too, everybody. Yeah, you want to subscribe to Spurs in Focus on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Amazon Podcast, YouTube Music, and don't forget about the Spurs in Focus Substack, completely free. Go sign up right now. We're talking about Game 1, Spurs lose 104-102 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Game 2 is in a couple of days, actually tomorrow. So hopefully the Spurs can rebound that and go to Minnesota tied 1-1. So, Rudy, any final thoughts? We're going to a little more specifics as far as turning point and key stats and all that stuff.
Final thoughts are, it's a loss. I mean, that's basically the way I'm going to put it. It's a loss, and it's not a bad loss. It's not a good loss. It's just a loss. They, like I mentioned, I'm going over the stats here. I mean, they're pretty much even, if not better than Minnesota on paper when it comes to the team stats. It's just some shots didn't fall. Minnesota got some shots. And, to be fair, there was a lot of questionable calls being made against San Antonio. So I'm not blaming the refs at all. I mean, you're going to play. But overall, my final thought is it's just a loss, man. I mean, it's not a big deal at all.
My final thought is this. This is the same Spurs team that's never lost 2 games in a row, more than 2 games in a row, and they've rebounded from a loss already in the postseason. Sure, it was against the Blazers, but nevertheless, there is that silver lining. By the way, Victor Wembanyama admitted he didn't know what the phrase silver lining means in postgame chat. He goes, I don't know what that means, but I think he figured it out just by context clues.
Yeah.
So there is that. This is a Spurs team, again, that's never had more than 2 losses in a row. They've rebounded from a loss already this postseason, and they made it a game. We look at that final frame. I'll pull it up here. The Spurs went on a run to close out the fourth period and almost get the win. They go on a +6 run. So the score was tied, or actually the score was 99-91 Minnesota with about 3 minutes left in the fourth period.
Mm-hmm.
They went all the way closer to 104-102, your final score. In that run, Champagnie almost was the hero. He was that close. 4 points, 3 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds for Julian. Mm-hmm. And the Spurs nearly pulled it off. So that's good. So that tells me they didn't give up. They didn't just throw their hands up there. Well, game over. There's only about 2-3 seconds left. So what? They fought to the bitter end. Champagnie even mentioned that too, that this team was fighting to the end. Overall, they thrived from the post-game chats where they felt positive. Victor said there's just a few tweaks they got to do. And I agree with them. There's a few tweaks, like getting things offensively going. He even said it himself that he spent too much energy on the defensive end. By the way, shout out Victor, though, franchise NBA record. How many blocks did he have on the night?
12 blocks.
Yeah, 12 blocks.
And he broke Will Chamberlain's record.
Yeah, busted that record, busted Tim Duncan's record here in San Antonio. So shout out Victor. Victor was a defensive monster.
Yeah.
Offensively, he admits that he wasn't there for the team. And Edwards was, Edwards scored 11 points for the Wolves in that fourth period, guided them to the win, and he did that all in 9 minutes. So superstar is going to superstar, and that's what Ant did. Victor's got to do the same in game 2 if it's, again, another close game. All right, let's go to the turning point. So what was our turning point of the game? Rudy, take it away because you were quick to text me the turning point.
Yeah, so for me, the turning point of the game was just one simple play. It was when Mike Conley hit the three-pointer in the fourth quarter to give the Minnesota Timberwolves a 9-point lead. And I immediately texted you, and I'm like, that's probably game right there with Mike Conley knocking down that three-pointer. Wolves built it up to 9 points, and I figured, okay, that's it. Mike Conley scored 12 points in that game last night. All 12 point, all baskets were from 3-point range. He was 4 of 7, I believe, from 3-point range. So that was a dagger. That was my turning point. If the Spurs would have been able to get a stop there, I mean, you're talking about maybe a 5-point swing because they would have maybe got a 2-point swing, a 2-pointer right there, which at the end of the game puts it at 102-101. So I mean, that's my turning point of the game. This game was so good and so close throughout the entire game. It's hard to pick one spot, but for me, when Conley hit that dagger, I was like, this is probably it for San Antonio tonight. Let's go ahead and get into game 2. That's my turning point, that Mike Conley dagger 3 in the fourth.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, that felt like the air went out of the Spurs system. Just out of you just see them kind of like, and Conley, man, despite his age and how many years he's been in the league, man, he is a steady force on that court. I was a little surprised that Minnesota didn't have him out there to close out the game when it was tight. I even said, why isn't Conley out there? That's the guy you want out there to steady the ship if you're Minnesota, but he wasn't. Unfortunately for the Spurs, the Wolves got the win 104-102. Turning point for me, I think it was just really the fourth period. You just saw the winds change in Minnesota's favor.
Yeah.
They kept it close. They started the fourth period. It was 72-69, Spurs with the lead. You go about 8 minutes left of the fourth period. They're still within fighting distance, 84-81, Spurs with the lead. And then, as we mentioned, the Wolves go on that plus 12 run to overtake the lead and seal it, the win for them. In that run, Minnesota, again, 7 for 10 shooting from the field. While the Spurs go ice cold, as I mentioned, 1 for 5. So the fourth period for me was their turning point where everything turned towards Minnesota's favor. All right, now it could be good or it could be bad, Rudy, but let's look at some standout stats. Rudy, what is your standout stat from game 1?
Ooh, man, standout stat. I could go through a bunch of them, but for me, I'm going to go with the standout stat was a positive, and I think it was the fast break points. They were able to knock the T-Wolves out of the park, 27-10 on the fast break points. Mm-hmm. So the Spurs were able to get out on the break, getting easy baskets. Mm-hmm. That's a huge positive for San Antonio. A lot of it came early in the game, so that's kind of where you want to kind of continue that. I figured normally when a team wins the fast break points and they're winning a lot of the categories, chances are good that they're going to win the game. But for me, the standout stat was that they were able to get out on the break. They were able to get these fast break points, something that I wanted them to continue to do against Minnesota. So again, doesn't allow Rudy Gobert to get set up when they're able to get on the fast break. Shows that the trio of the guards of Stephon Castle, Fox, and Harper, that they can get on the break, Champagny as well. So yeah, that's my standout stat was the fast break points for me.
For me, my standout stat revolves around this guy, De'Aaron Fox, and not in a good way. He was a minus 13 for the game, 10 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists. So there's that. But nevertheless, goes 5 for 14 from the field, good for 35% shooting. Did not make a single 3-pointer. He went 0 for 4 and just didn't really contribute in the big way. And I think what killed it for me and why this is a negative standout stat is because he had 6 turnovers.
Yeah.
6 turnovers. There's a reason why he was a minus 13 because of that big reason. He needs to have a better game. You can say, hey, Victor, offensively, you weren't shining bright, but defensively, you brought business. Okay, you get that. Fox didn't really do much on either end of the court. He shot the Spurs in the foot with 6 turnovers, did not make 3-pointers. Fine, he's not known for that, but we know he can make them. And just had a bad offensive night. If he had just hit his season averages, the Spurs would have won. Simple as that. Now, not putting it all on him. It's a collective effort. I understand that. But he is the co-star, and he needs to play like a co-star in this situation, especially in the playoffs. The playoffs, you need to keep your game rising or at least keep it steady. We did not see that from De'Aaron Fox in game 1. All right, Rudy. Who is your standout player or players?
So for me, my standout players, I'm going to get 2, and you might actually take one of them as well.
Okay.
One thing I mentioned was that the Spurs got to win from off the bench. Their bench has to be better than Minnesota. Check mark that. Keldon Johnson shooting, I think, 62% from inside the arc. He got 11 points. I was thinking if he had 17, 18, Spurs would win. Obviously, he was there, just didn't get quite that high. Also, Dylan Harper coming in, 18 points. He came in focused, man. Dylan Harper is showing the reason why he got some Rookie of the Year votes in there as well. So for me, it was Keldon Johnson. It was Dylan Harper. Both guys came off the bench. They did what they had to do. They played their role perfectly in this game. So they're both of them are my standout players for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Keldon Johnson, definitely playing in a solid game that maybe suits his game better, that rugged physicality. You saw him get into the trees there. But as you mentioned, Keldon Johnson, 11 points, 2 rebounds and assists. He even hit 62% of his 2-point shots there. So overall, a good, productive game from Keldon Johnson. I'm glad, and I hope this game just gets him going. Game 1, get him going, get him cooking. It's easy to pick Victor because of just what he did defensively. It's almost like cheating when you pick out standout player. Well, likely going to be Victor 8 out of 10 times. But I'm going to go with Julian Champagnie. Yeah. I'm going to go with Julian. I love his grit at the end of the game. He just was relentless. He did not want to see the Spurs escape with a loss. And unfortunately, they did escape with the loss, or maybe they didn't escape with the win, I should say. But 17 points, 7 rebounds in 31 minutes. He was a +7 for the Spurs, and he goes 58% shooting in the game there. And again, what stood out for me too was that the way he was a huge reason why the Spurs still had a puncher's chance at the end of the game. As I mentioned, he scored 4 points with 3 rebounds. 3 of those 4 rebounds were offensive boards. He was giving the Spurs 3 chances to get the W in that +6 run the Spurs went on to close out the game. Unfortunately, his 3-point shot did not fall to would have won the game for the Spurs. And but for me, I just love that grit. He was just attacking the board, just crashing it.
Yeah.
And I always said that he gets underrated for that. I think he's a really solid rebounder. Not the greatest, he's not Dennis Rodman, but he is a good rebounder. And that was shining on him in that run. So I'm going to give it to Julian Champagnie as my standout player. All right, Rudy, we got game 2 on the horizon. By the way, we will have a complete preview of game 2. But just since you're probably going to take the day off of that show, your thoughts on game 2?
I expect the same thing. I expect a very close game. What I do also expect is, like I said, the coaches out for the Spurs to kind of make some adjustments. Luke Cornett is the biggest concern. I don't know if he was injured. I don't know if something was going on. But just seeing him get 8 minutes only in that game 1, kind of surprising to me. Cornett's been getting some pretty significant run, especially against Minnesota. He's able to, get in there with Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert as well. So I'm fully expecting him to get more than 8 minutes, especially if it's going to be alongside Victor. That's my thing that I want to see is him to play more, because Victor at 40 minutes, I don't know if he's ever played 40 minutes in a game. So that's kind of new territory for me. But for game 2, same thing, close game. I think Anthony Edwards probably has a better game. I don't know if Julius Randle kind of still considers to be just sitting right around that 20-point mark. But again, I fully expect Victor. I expect De'Aaron Fox to have much better games. Maybe not scoring 30 points each or whatever, but I fully expect them to have a whole lot more points. One other thing is Stephon Castle. I hope he does not get into foul trouble again. It's not necessarily letting your team down. I don't want you to play less physical. I just want you to be out there when the moment is that big, because in those moments throughout this season, it's either been him or Victor that's come through for San Antonio. And sometimes it's been both of them at the same time. So, I mean, it's hand in hand. So those are my things for game 2. And the preview is, dare I say the Spurs win by like 2 or 3. That's kind of my
man. Yeah, I'm gonna sit on it for a while. I'll give my prediction in the preview for game 2, because I gotta look at some numbers. Just I'm a little nervous. Minnesota. And think about it, they were playing with a hobbled, less than 100% Ant Edwards. I mean, they had Io in uniform.
Yeah.
So he more than likely is going to come back. He was, he's not out because of some major injury. It was just like soreness, something like that. So,
does Carter Bryant make a difference in game 1? Because he has length. He could give Anthony Edwards a little bit of fit. And again, he's got length, and I think Carter Bryant on Anthony Edwards for a few minutes probably is a little bit better, because he gives him fits. He's a lot longer. But also Carter Bryant on Julius Randle. I mean, you saw him play against the bigs against Portland.
Yeah.
The first game wasn't so great, but then he kind of got into the groove, kind of got into the mix. So could he made a big difference? I don't know. But I mean, hopefully he plays game 2 and we're able to see.
Also, the 6 fouls there. You can spread that out with him. You can live with him getting into foul trouble, and you can more so with Vassell or Keldon or Castle. So there's that as well. All right, but again, as you heard, we will have a complete game 2 preview coming up tomorrow right here in Spurs in Focus. He is Mr. Rudy Campos with the Sports Answer. He's on X at the Sports Answer. How you guys doing over there?
Oh, we're doing good. So we're going to be doing a new YouTube channel, actually. It's going to be strictly for the Sports Answer. Again, sponsored by Salem Surround. You'll be able to catch Spurs in Focus on there as well. So look for that to be coming out. That way you don't miss out. And it's going to be, of course, Derek Gervin on the Friday Drive. This Friday, I won't be on it, but we may have a special guest filling in potentially. So we'll see how that goes, but also, you'll get more Sports Answer on Sundays and Saturdays, stuff like that. So, got a lot going on.
Exactly. Best way to get up all the news about the Sports Answer is just follow him on X at the Sports Answer. Do that right now. Rudy, thank you for your time to recap Game 1 loss, 104-102. Your Spurs are down 0-1 in the Western Conference Semis to the Wolves. We'll see how they do tomorrow night at the Frost. Don't forget to subscribe to wherever you get your favorite podcast. So if you're on Amazon Podcast, we're there. Spotify, we're there. YouTube Music, we're there. Apple, iTunes, we're there. So go subscribe to Spurs in Focus. And we thank y'all for making Spurs in Focus your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. This is your first place each and every time you need some Spurs news. You want to come here. Ignore all those other ones you see on YouTube. Come here to Spurs in Focus. Substack, Spurs in Focus Substack is completely free. Go sign up right now. Hit subscribe, and you are part of the crew. So for Mr. Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. And now you're in focus with Spurs in Focus.